Hello, greetings and welcome. Alright, so there's a theme in meditation where you have a form of concentration. Concentration accumulates stillness, which creates an environment of equanimity. Equanimity softens the mental matrix and creates insight. So this is a standard formula in Buddhist practice, and it applies to all spiritual practices. So this gives you a guide as to determine what spiritual practices are good for you and what are not good for you. Now, you can be playing tennis on a video game. You can be involved in any sport that keeps your mind focused, concentrated in the present moment. Now, to monitor, does that concentration develop stillness? Does that stillness generate insight? It can be determined by the accumulation of stillness underneath the activity. So let's say you've just done a round of tennis and you sit down and you have a break. You close your eyes and just quietly observe what is. Do you feel calm? Do you feel quiet? Do you feel your mind is expanded? Is your mind occupying more space than normal? Then those are the conditions upon which insight can arise. Because of the softening of the mental matrix, when the stillness accumulates, there's less clinging. You're not sticking to your ego, you're not sticking to your body. Your mind is, I can go out. The spirit can get let out of the house. So this is a type of a measuring device. And there's a lot of sports in which you're required to occupy a big mental space, like tennis. Your mind has to occupy the space of the tennis court. You need to read the intent of the person you're playing against. You're using a swinging action, so it's primarily fascia when you're running around the court. You look at professional tennis players, they're not muscly, they're elastic. So it's very good as a form of health and cross training. Your mind is concentrated on the ball, on the space, on the intent, reading the person's intent, and feeling out the environment. So you've got a lot of things happening at once. So these types of sports are highly addictive because of the how many different factors are being triggered at the same time within your mental, astral, and physical bodies. So all you need to do is, when you have your break, sit down, sit in stillness, and see how much stillness your mind accumulated underneath the concentration. That's the vehicle for which insight moves through you. And you can apply this to any particular spiritual practice, any sport, any activity, and you can determine, is this a good form of cross-training? Now let's say if you start martial arts. Yeah, a lot of concentration. There may be a lot of stages of, I've got to overcome fear of sparring, fear of getting injured, fear of interacting with people, and so forth. So your martial arts training class won't be, as a beginner, developing high levels of concentration if you're dealing with emotional crises while you're going through it. Once you've overcome those emotions, then you'll settle into the concentration, the focused mind, and so forth. Now, this formula of concentration, equanimity, and insight, it's very, very, very clear. You look at any of the great minds, their mental space was open when they touched their genius. When a person has a great idea, they're in a big mental space. What allows that to happen? Equanimity. Equanimity allows a space to open and for people to come in resonance with great ideas. Now, the initiation process, initiation to Hermetics, each exercise, it's an interplay between a type of concentration and the accumulation of a type of stillness which generates a type of insight. It's a causal chain reaction within the training process. So it doesn't matter what the exercise is, you need to concentrate. Now you might be observing the rising and falling wave of thoughts. Now as you observe, you're not allowed to touch anything. It's a soft type of stillness which arises. Where the next exercise where you concentrate on a single thought, it's like a razor blade. So it's a very clear, focused type of stillness which accumulates. Those are two different types of stillness. And then when you go to the mental vacuity exercise next and just enter in and pay attention to the stillness, the balance of these two different types of stillness create variance in the equanimity underneath your mind. So when you drop into the vacuum, the mental vacuum of the mind, then you have this interplay. If you've done only one of those exercises and not the other, and you're paying attention to the stillness, your experience will change. Now, this in Hermetics we have this idea that there's an Akashic blueprint, that your body is moving in and out of Akasha all the time. The particles are appearing and disappearing. And this vibration of form and formless, it needs some type of blueprint in which to keep you in form and stable, so that you don't just disintegrate and disappear. We call this the Etheric Blueprint, or the Etheric body, or the Akashic body. This blueprint keeps you intact, and it stops you from changing too quickly. If you modify that blueprint, things change very, very fast. So when you're Akasha breathing, you're tinkering with your own fate. There's a predictability in the stream of physical activity. There's a predictability in the stream of astral activity. There's a predictability in the stream of mental activity. And this stream, the universal laws know and understand outcomes. A, B, C, and it just goes down the line. It's a causation chain. So the universe is pretty damn smart. So there's no real freedom of choice, because everything's predictable and understandable before it happens, because just the nature of things is predictable. Now, when we work with Akasha, you step from form, predictability, into formless. You move outside of predictability. And this is what makes the spiritual path interesting. This is why high adepts who have moved up into non-dual light, they reincarnate back in the physical, not because they have to, but because they want to train Akasha to move into the unpredictable stream, that you can drop outside of causation and work towards Nabana at a very, very high speed. When you can step out of the stream, you're not controlled by fate. And this is the thing that entices high deities and immortals and non-dual light beings and all these high frequency bodhisattvas to come back into a body, because they know they need a body in order to train Akasha. If you're outside of time and space infinity and trying to train Akasha, Akasha will just consume you. You have no ground, you have no root. When you have a physical body, you have a root. And by training your concentration to cultivate equanimity, to generate insight, it gives you a platform upon which you can start to investigate Akasha. They call this Wuji in the Taoist tradition, and develop deep, profound metaphysical insights and raise up the vibrational scale. Okay, so this is why so many of the systems talk about Akasha as something that, oh wow, that's a difficult skill to attain. Generally, it's going to take a person about 10 years of concentration skill to accumulate the samahati, to accumulate the accompanying stillness, to have the equanimity arise for insight to happen, so that they can pay attention to these universal laws, these dharmas, and have direct insight into them and go, this is what I have to do to train. Now, let's say you decide to, okay, I want to develop concentration. You take a rock and you put the rock there on the on the mantle in front of you, and you go, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this rock. Might be a crystal. Now, you focus on your meditation object. The first thing that's going to happen is your body is going to start to relax and become calm. Your physical body is going to start releasing. There's a release of the physical. This releasing of muscle tension will gravitate towards biotensecrity tension. Your body has to sit up. You need to stand. You need to have some sort of structure to do your practice in, whether it's a sitting meditation, a standing meditation, a walking meditation, or a laying meditation. When tension lets go, there's a transfer of energy from muscle contraction to muscle stretch. It's still tension, but it's a biotensecrity elastic tension, not a contract resisting tension. This is the first thing that happens when you're paying attention to your meditation object. Your body relaxes. If you maintain your posture during that relaxation, the muscles in your spine, they change. They change the way they align. The next thing that happens is everything starts to slow down. So you move from this physical muscle to fascia transformation to fascia through the life force, which comes active within that, to the astral. As you're slowing your mind down, you feel vital energy, and it transforms your awareness into astral energy. So your middle dantian, your astral body, is running at a slower time continuum than your physical body. Your astral body contains your ego, your emotions. So what happens when you think about the past or think about the future? You're accessing your astral body, and it's not in the now. Your physical body's in the now. Your spirit wants to be mindful in the now, but your astral body, it has this from the moment of self-awareness in your mother's womb, it stretches out to the moment of death and is moving up and down that timeline all the time. It's not really wanting to stay in the present moment that much. There's a slight preference to the present moment and the near future and near past within the magnetism of the mind existing in this body, but it's streaming forward and backward. I've got to work really hard for when I get old, and I had that great time on that holiday last year, and it does these things in the astral body. And this is released of time. When you concentrate on your meditation object, things slow down. And as things slow down, you're going to start having visions. Now, these visions are different aspects of things that have happened in the future, things that may have happened in the past. They may be emotional peaks within people's lives around you. Now, it may not be a visual thing, it may be a feeling. It may be a clairsentient knowing about something. It may be sounds. You may hear the next great hit that's going to be coming out next year, if you're into music. So these, when you start releasing time, you start moving from the present moment into the astral field, into the past and the future. And this is a side effect of correct practice. Now, if you keep concentrating on your meditation object and you ignore all these things that are coming up in your mind's eye and your body feeling and sounds and scents and smells and tastes and insights, and you don't get distracted and you keep concentrating, the accumulated stillness, the accumulated equanimity deepens, and you start releasing space. So here, your center of gravity of the physical body, lower dantian. You move from muscle tension to fascia tension through life force awareness. Everything's living energy, everything's alive. Then as time slows down further, your center of gravity goes to the middle of the astral body, to the heart center. Then if you keep concentrating and developing the stillness, the equanimity, then your awareness goes up to the mental body. The mental body is not subject to space. So what happens is the space that your mind normally occupies starts feathering. It just halves and splits and moves out, and you start occupying more space. If you're practicing Qigong in front of a tree, before you know it, you're practicing Qigong with the forest. So your mind will just start releasing the edges of its perceived space and move outwards. And it'll move from this emotional substance relationship to its environment to a mind relationship to its environment. So when we're in the physical body, we're perceiving everything through our five senses. When we move to the astral body, we're perceiving everything through our emotions. It's kind of a substance of, you relate to things based on how they make you feel in the astral. And then in the mental, there's this acknowledgement of consciousness, of the tree, of the forest, of the group consciousness of the forest, of the suburb, of the city, of the mountain. Wherever you are, there's an expansion of mind substance. When this comes to completion, it's called omnipresence, that you are at one with your environment, that you recognize the universe as mind, and that you are the mind of the universe, your vibrational match to it, and you take ownership of that particular part of your being. So this stage, it feathers off. It goes from, okay, I'm this body, oh, now I'm this room, and then now I'm part of the structure of the building and all the people inside of it, and you just keep feathering off and becoming larger. You're still, remember, you're still concentrating on your rock. You've got the rock in front of you, time has slowed down, space has started feathering off. You start to have a broad range of experiences in relation to feeling connected to the environment, feeling connected to people. And this is where the Buddhist four divine abodes start to reveal themselves. Now the first divine abode is goodwill. And goodwill is a type of reaction to the environment that generates evolution. It's a very hard thing to explain, but from a very mundane level, okay, my mind is incarnated in this body. This is my arm. I have to take care of this arm and keep it clean and wash it and put fuel in the body. I have to have goodwill towards this body if I want to keep it. So there's a type of, I have to nurture and take care of the body while my mind's in it, otherwise my mind's going to suffer inside this body. So I have to evolve it, make the brain grow, understand my environment, take care of social interactions, make money so I can eat high quality food and have a nice good cave to live in and be safe, security. All these things is a type of goodness towards myself. There's a goodness, or should I say, towards the body, towards the ego, towards other people, towards your social networks, and so forth. So this first divine abode of goodwill is a recognition of what generates evolution and growth within you and your environment and the people around you, and you're in resonance with that evolution. There's a sense of goodness that you want to be in resonance within yourself and your relationship to others. Now, when you develop that, you come into a type of a quality of love. Now, anything that you care for and you have goodwill towards, you generate a type of understanding without judgment. If your mind is above the emotions, you understand things without judging them and go, oh, this is the causation chain that led to this situation. This is a type of universal love. In Buddhism they call this metta. Now, metta is a byproduct of correct practice. When you start feeling goodwill for people and you start understanding them, what happens? You have compassion. So that compassion arises, and because you understand what brought them to a place and the causation chain which led them there, you have a compassionate reaction. Well, if I can teach them how how they think, feel, and act generates energy radiating out mentally, astrally, and physically, that they change that. They can choose a different direction and they can have a better life. It's just the psychology and the metaphysics of thinking, feeling, behavior. It's a two-way antenna. So most of what is in Buddhism, in the Dharma, is compassion is not, oh, I'm going to give this poor person money. You teach the person how to make money. It's a teaching of the universal laws of how you think, how you feel, and how you act, and the two-way antenna vibrational effect of that. That's the Dharma, and that's what puts you on evolutionary scale going up. Now remember, this is a byproduct or a side effect of concentration. As you develop concentration, you're getting equanimity. What happens with that? Your body relaxes, you move from muscle to fascia, you move through the feelings of life force. You may not be paying attention to them, but they're there. Everything slows down, you move from physical to astral, and then space starts moving, and then you start feeling and sensing the divine abodes. And there's 4 of them. So we've got goodwill, a sense of evolution. We have love, the sense of understanding that judgment. The reaction to love is compassion. You want to share Dharma, you want to share what you see, what you know, so other people can evolve and develop themselves. And the last of the 4 divine abodes is called equanimity. We've already started to see that in the accumulation of stillness from the beginning. The Buddha said equanimity is the only of the 4 divine abodes that is transcendent, that will lead to Nabana, that will release a person of attachment, aversion, delusion, and take them to the highest. So everything we actually do in the initiation process is a cultivation of equanimity, so that we have the insight and the wisdom of how to practice. Remember that the initiation text is just a finger pointing at the moon. You don't look at the initiation text, you look at the moon and you do the practices, and then you develop yourself. You cannot extract, understand, get any predictive ability about what's going to happen by reading the book. Your intellect simply cannot comprehend that. It's way too vast. It's incomprehensible. So the only benefit people can get from the initiation book is by practicing it, by putting that rock on the table and go, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this. I'm going to release time. I'm going to release space. Now, as that akasha, that equanimity and stillness has been accumulating, and the insights start arising, and the person's moving through these 4 divine abodes, some very, very interesting things start to happen. The mind starts to identify with the stillness more than the nature of its own mind, of being an individual. So it moves from a self-identity to a non-self identity. And this is where Buddhism distinguishes itself as being a very unique, powerful method for opening the last door. This non-self allows the mind to move through that equanimity from the form to the formless and equalize with the akasha underneath, the emptiness of the universe which supports and allows all form to exist. So akasha is known as the mother. It's the holy mother of the universe. The universal mind, or the original light, is the father. And that universal mind, when it touches the mother, it creates the sun. And the sun is non-dual light. That's that creative essence that comes out and separates the yin and yang and creates all things. So there's this idea in Hermetics of the Holy Mother, the universal mind, the Father. When the mind and emptiness touch, light is created, light separates the yin and yang, and we have the creative process. So basically what the initiation text and what Buddhism is doing is reverse engineering creation. By paying attention to your meditation object, you're releasing time, you're releasing space, and the akasha accumulates so that your mind moves from the center of gravity of the mental body up through the crown and out. Remember, you're still just staring at a rock. There's no doctrine, there's nothing to believe, you haven't read any books, you don't even need the initiation text. You just go, okay, I'm going to stare at a rock, and I'm going to accumulate this power. Now, when we look at some of the yogis in India, they just go into samadhi, concentration. What happens? Akasha starts building around them, and they perform magic. That stillness in akasha, the emptiness underneath form, becomes so powerful and so accumulated that they can perform magic and manifest things out of the akasha because of the density and accumulation of that akashic substance. And this is how all true magic works. It's a byproduct of correct training. It's a byproduct of samadhi. All right, so going back to our rock. We've been staring at it, we've released time, we've released space, we've started absorbing into the akasha, we've followed the form, the particles moving in and out of emptiness, We'll recognize that this body and everything is just energy appearing, disappearing, and then as it disappears, we track it through equanimity, and we find ourselves in Akasha, and the crown chakra opens up. Now, as the crown chakra opens up, we move from this expanded mental space where everything is a mind substance to everything is inherently empty, and there's an Akashic substance underlying the universe. There's an emptiness, and this emptiness has no limitations. If you want to move into equanimity in Akasha and then put your mind on the moon, your mind arises on the moon. You don't travel from A to B. You go A, now I'm in B. You don't go through linear space to get there. Akasha allows you to appear anywhere you want to appear. And as soon as you start triggering to this fundamental principle, you go, okay, if I can cultivate this equanimity, I can move anywhere up and down this vibrational scale and appear anywhere I want simply by moving through equanimity, and I don't need to go through linear space. This becomes the fabric of what my teacher called raising the lower energies to the higher, what I call the three transformations, moving from the physical through the astral, through the mental, through the Akasha into light. So this non-dual light that we're looking for is the destination of just concentrating on the rock. Because when you end up in that Akasha and you look at your own mind, you just turn the mirror inside of the Akasha, and from equalizing with Akasha, you look at your spirit. It's fundamentally light. It's a star. It's just a pure light. And this light, and the reason we can even experience it as a light, is because there's something stuck to it which makes it individualize itself as a light. If there's nothing stuck to it, it would be equal with the universal mind. But because it's been going through all these incarnations of the spirit moving from one incarnation to the next, there's stickiness on the mental body, on the spirit. All these layers going up, there's something stuck to it. Every time we interact with an object, we build a story around it, and we fabricate something. We fabricate a belief structure around it. So you're staring at your rock, you've released time, you've released space, you've entered into Akasha, you've looked at your mind, and there's light. And your mind is essentially non-dual light at its essence. There's an individualized form of this non-dual light, and then there's a field of light. Remember the basic training. You vital breathe. What do you do when you vital breathe? You relax the muscle, open the joints to stretch, go into the feeling of life force, recognize the feeling of life force outside your body, willpower, breath, stretch, condensed in the ball, you feel life force. And then what do we do with that? We pore breathe it. We recognize the life force of the whole body. Then what do we do with it? We recognize the center of gravity, the lower dantian. Then what do? We look at the field of life force, the life force all around us. So you have life force of the body, center of gravity, and field. We want to do that same thing in the astral body. We end up doing the same thing in the Hermetic training in the mental body. We do the same thing in the Akasha, and we do the same thing in this non-dual light by looking at the nature of mind. So we see this star, we see this light of the mind, this bright intensity, and we go, okay, well, this light has a field, it has a center of gravity, and when I'm incarnated into this body, this light will radiate through the body. So this light, you end up following the same process. Where's the center of gravity? How does it emanate through the form of what I'm incarnated in, and the field? So when you transfer your mind into that light, there is a universal field of light in which you start to experience. And we call this non-dual light, or the ocean of light. And between your first experience of this non-dual light, it becomes more subtle, more non-dual, because there's a slight flux there, to the point of where it stands still perfectly and you are fully released. That release point is called Nabana. That's the goal in Buddhism. Now, Nabana basically is a place where you become liberated and free of form, you become liberated and free of reincarnation, you become liberated and free of being a part of the creative cycle, where you equalize with that and you step out of the system. That is the goal. Now, some people might hypothesize and say, oh, that's the essence of God. Some people say, no, God's a creator, so it's beyond God. It's beyond the universal mind. It's the next phase. It doesn't really matter what it is. What matters is how do you have a direct experience to understand that yourself. So this process, you can monitor how you practice, what your practices are. Does your practice allow you to slow everything down, relax your body? Does it allow you to move from muscle to fascia? Does it allow you to become aware of life force and the field and your center of gravity of that field? Does it allow you to release time further into the astral body, recognize the center of gravity of the astral body, recognize your astral emanations of all your emotional nature and the astral field through releasing time? Does it allow you to move up to the mental body and release space, recognize the center of gravity of the mental body, the shape of the mental body inside this form and the mental field? Does it give you a model to cultivate equanimity further, to develop akasha, to open your crown chakra and have a universal mind experience, and how your etheric body, which connects to that, regulates how you move in and out of form all the time, your etheric blueprint? And then, does your meditation object, your method, allow you to look at your mind from within akasha, recognize your mind for what it is, it's pure light, and then investigate it as a field of light, and then start to purify that spark of light to attain Nabana? This is the whole path simplified. So whatever system you're training, this is how you determine and evaluate, does that system allow me to go to the highest, to develop myself to the peak? If it doesn't allow you to go to the peak, you have to make adjustments within the system to take you there or find a better system. Okay, thank you for your time, and see you on the next video.